Yeah, hello everybody, and welcome to lecture number 2. The purpose of this lecture is to talk a little bit about the main characteristics of projects and what distinguish projects from other type of assignments, such as, for instance, we're working in a factory or in a bank or similar disciplines. The thing that we know about project is that they are not only about delivering something within the constraints of time, within budget, and with the right scope or with the right qualities. These things are important. Indeed, the output of a project is to produce something. But also, we should also keep in mind that projects are conducted mainly because we want to achieve something different. We want something new. We want to add value or to create some sort of change or transformation. So adding value is an important product of projects in addition to the physical product. And this understanding that projects create value or contribute to adding value is important. Why it is important? Because it changes our way of managing the project. The project is no longer a product that we want to produce and deliver and finish with that. No, it means that the project will impact somebody, will impact something, and we have to make sure that the project make this impact in the right way. In addition, projects are not really isolated from the context. They are affected and they affect the context they are operating at during execution and after execution. So there are many contextual conditions that we have to consider. For instance, uncertainty about the future. That's a typical challenge with project. What will happen when the product will be in operation? How it will impact, why it will impact that way, how the context will change, how the people will change. So these things we really have to consider if we are concerned about this value creation. In addition, now projects are not really small tasks or simple tasks that can be done by few people or few organizations. Now, because of the sophistication of the products, projects need or require many contributors, and this puts demand on communication and information flow and coordination and commitment as well. So they are also executed, many of them at least, executed in a context of complexity. So what makes, if we would like to summarize, what really makes project different than any ordinary assignment, we can summarize 5 important features, 5 important characteristics. First one is the complexity. And here I am not talking about the product complexity, the sophistication of the product, but I am talking about the organizational complexity. What do I mean by that? Yes, I said that you need a lot of people. You can do that by your own. And the second characteristic of a project, it contributes or it should lead to a change or a transformation. And someone might ask now, what is the difference between a change and transformation? Well, a change maybe is not that radical. It is something maybe some sort of adaptation, small steps you want to achieve, you want to attain, but transformation is more radical. That's why you will hear these days many people talk about digital transformation. It's this is like shifting the complete skin of an organization. But change, it's a small adaptation. And the third characteristic is that they project have as well impact on business or strategy. It is you will never find any project or no organization will take on a project unless it will contribute to their long-term strategy or to their short-term strategy, or it will give them some business advantage. Of course, this business advantage sometimes is achieved if you attain this change or transformation. The transformation and business impact, sometimes they overlap a little bit. And of course, like all projects, they are executed under one or several types of constraints. There are many limitations. You don't have an open check when you start a project. There are a cost structure, there are budget, there are requirements, there are regulations, there are needs you have to look for or you have to satisfy. So this makes execution a little bit complicated. And perhaps the most important feature of projects is the uncertainty. When you start on doing the project work, usually there are a lot of information missing or unknown or ambiguous. You cannot really predict the entire life cycle. You cannot see what will happen during executions because of the complexity, because of the constraints, because of the organizational factors involved, because of the people. So uncertainty is a key characteristic of all projects. Now, we should also mention that the level of each characteristic varies. It is not like that every project is organizationally complex. Not every project is uncertain. Not every project has a huge or a great impact on business. And not every project have multiple constraints. But the degree of these features or characteristics could vary according to the type and nature of the project. And this means that we really have to understand our project in order to be able to manage the project right. This is the key feature of project management. You need to know, you need to learn, you need to understand the nature of your work so that you can devise the right approach, the right strategy, the right measures when you are addressing or when you are managing your project. So let's look at these characteristics. Again, change or transformations compared to repetitive tasks, like you go to your office every day at the university or in the bank or in the factory or in the supermarket, and you repeat the same tasks every day in a continuous way. Projects, on the other hand, are not like that. We do projects in order to change something. You want to adapt, you want to optimize, you want to rationalize. So there is a new element there. Or you want to change the organizational structure in order to improve how your organization is operating. So this is an ambitious plan. You want to change your organization. Sometimes you want to let the people do things differently, changing their attitude, their behavior, their collaboration style. So anything we can put into this form of change or this concept change or transformation, but it's about making a shift, organizational, social, personal, and so on. Among the cases in the book that I would advise you to read is this fast track joint replacement surgery. And in this case, the purpose of this work was to change the entire procedure for performing the joint replacement surgery procedure. And they, in order to achieve that, they have to write a new procedure, test this new procedure, make complete details about how this procedure should be performed, how many days you should stay at the hospital after the procedures, when you should come to the hospital before the procedures, how many hours you will spend before the procedure starts, detailed insight to fast track the procedure. Of course, this means that the nurses and the doctors and the administrations, they have to adapt to this fast procedure. And of course, the objective of that project was to operate as many people as possible in the shortest possible time. But such procedure, a new procedure or change, doesn't come automatically, because every one of us is comfortable with what we do. And when you change, you take people out of their comfort zone. And then immediately some sort of resistance or perhaps reluctance. So you have to address that. If you want to change, then you have to address how you are going to manage that change. But change or transformation is a key characteristic of most of the projects, especially soft projects or restructuring projects. And then we have another dimension, the organizational complexity. As I said, in some projects, the product structure, the product you produce, imagine an oil platform, for example. An oil platform, although it's mainly a lot of metal that you put together and you put a lot of systems and equipment on top. But it is technically sophisticated operation. It's a huge operation. Some of these operations require maybe 200 different companies that will do this job to build and install an oil platform. Maybe in the number of people you need in such operation, roughly around 5,000 people. So there are a lot of people, there are a lot of organizations. And of course, this complicates the information flow in the project. Now, the number of people or the number of organization is not the only factor that contribute to complexity. Usually these people belongs to different culture, belongs to different backgrounds. They are distributed on many different locations. And this adds more complexity to information flow and communication flow. So in order to handle a complex project, you need a certain type of competencies. You need really to understand how you will deal with all these different culture, backgrounds, locations, expectations, and the number of people. There is another added dimension to and the added feature to projects. And the added feature, this added feature of projects is the business perspective. What do I mean by that? Yes, you want to create a change, but you want to change the people attitude, the organizational structure, but you want to gain something out of that. The project owner want to gain something. And this is the business perspective. There is a commercial, there is a strategic, and therefore it is very important that every project should be aligned, with the business objectives. This alignment is very important so that we can make sure that every project will contribute something to the business at the end of the day. Of course, not every project has the same impact on the business, but same level of impact. But every project, I would say that every project I have revised, I have studied and described in the book is initiated to achieve a business goal at the end, to eliminate a problem, to prevent a problem, and to take advantage of a new opportunity, technology or market. And sometimes because of a higher objective, like maintaining relationship with your client, not more than that. So this business perspective is important to consider when we are managing the project. The direct impact of this business perspective is that every project should be aligned with the project owner organization. There should be some sort of commitment, a strong commitment actually, from the project owner to the project organization. Otherwise, you will not be able to do your work. The fourth factor that characterize project is the constraints. Compared to any other daily assignment, ordinary assignment, repetitive tasks, the constraints are not that visible. But in projects, the constraints are more demanding, especially with respect to time. Time, or the concept of time in project, is important because of two reasons. Sometimes time is important because you want to have shorter execution time. You want your project to be executed as fast as possible. And this could be because you want to use your resources, your capacity on another project, or because you don't have enough capacity to extend the duration of your project. So the duration of a project is an important. You need to do this project as fast as possible or in a certain amount of time. That's one dimension, the duration. But sometimes the timing is more important than the duration. I want my project to finish on a certain date or on a certain period or a certain time window. Like launching a new service or a new product. If you are delayed, then somebody else will take the market from you. So the project duration maybe is not that critical, but the timing of launch is more critical. And this again put constraints on how you are going to organize your task. Are you organizing for a shorter duration, or are you organizing for a specific point in time? Other constraints could include limited budget, strict regulations, requirements, resource shortage, and perhaps there are many other constraints. By constraints, I mean limitations. You have to adhere to some requirements, either by the project owner or by the environment or by the project itself. I advise you to look at this project, the case construction project before, where they have outlined several constraints and they explain how they manage to execute the project and satisfy these constraints. Most of construction projects The constraints are very, very typical and very evident in construction projects. And the last characteristic of what makes project different is this uncertainty. Now, there is no really a good definition of what is uncertainty, but uncertainty when you are not able to provide assurance about the future state or the future outcome of your action, or even about the current state of your team or of your project. It's about lack of predictability. You are not able to predict anything. And in projects, this uncertainty is manifested in, for instance, uncertainty in relation to the scope of work. How much work I should really do in order to produce the scope. And there are, of course, uncertainty related to the people. Any project, and this we will cover in the next lecture when we talk about project stakeholders. There are many people who are involved as units and as individuals. What is their relationship to the project? What is the level of their support? What is the level of their interest? What is the level of their influence? There is a lot of guessing here. Guessing makes it uncertain. And there are uncertainties related to methods, how I am going to continue, what technologies I should use, what tools I should be using. For instance, also this is something we will look at in a later lecture. Are we going to use a plan-driven approach, decide everything in advance, and then execute, or are we going to go step by step and enlarge the scope as we learn about the project? So how do you approach? And of course, the traditional uncertainty is about the context. I mean, in any construction project, the weather could play an important role, and nobody really could expect or could predict what will be the weather tomorrow. There is some sort of accuracy related to that. And if you live in Trondheim, then you know what I'm talking about. And the causes why this uncertainty is there. Well, sometimes it's because the project is new. You don't know, you haven't done similar project. So there is a correlation between the level of uncertainty and the newness of the project. Sometimes because you don't have a project management competence, the right competence to do your work, because uncertainty can be addressed. You can do something about it to improve it. But if you don't know what to do, then you will not be able to handle it. Another contributor to the uncertainty is the level of assumptions. And the people have this tendency when you are not able to gain enough information, so people take shortcuts and they assume. And assumptions create misunderstandings. It doesn't really provide you with a full picture. And therefore, you base your project on a series of assumptions, unverified assumptions, which makes you will most likely change these estimates when you discover how wrong the assumption was. And of course, another factor is that when you start, it's about the text, about how you formulate yourself, you formulate your charter, and this we will cover a little bit later on in the course. Ambiguity, when you read the charter, the project charter, you don't really understand much of what they want, what is expected, and who will be doing what, and this causes even more uncertainty. Now, this is the challenge. you have a lot of characteristics with varying degree. When you are addressing these characteristics, or when you're working with your project, are you going to use the same approach with every project, uh, the same ground rules, or you will adapt your approach, your management approach, to the nature of your project? Now, what we are advocating in this course is that there are ground rules, general ground rules, and they are fine to learn and everything. But in order to succeed, you need to look at each characteristic and try to figure out how you address the project based on its own characteristics. Some people say every project is an island, and they of course have similarities to other projects, but they have unique characteristics. And we need to try to put this in our mind. For example, if you get sometimes you can revise two cases. The construction project, the B4, it's a building project here in Trondheim. And there is another case, a relocation of a warehouse. Just to mention, in the retail industry, every shop doesn't have a warehouse, an individual warehouse. A shop that belongs to one chain, for example, have only one warehouse. And when the shop needs an item, when you go and buy an item, at the same day, the shop sends a request to the warehouse to deliver a similar item to the shop next day from this central warehouse. So sometimes these chains change the location of their warehouses because it's cheaper. They want a place which is faster with less regulations or with easier regulation. So there is a case mentioned in the book, the relocation of a warehouse explains the need, why this type of project was conducted, and what went down on that project. Now, if we study these two projects, for instance, the relocation of the warehouse, immediately we could see that the relocation of the warehouse had strong impact on business. It is about saving lots of money by doing this relocation. So it has a strong impact on business. The level of uncertainty was very low because this is something they did before. They knew what it means to change the location. So it has low level of uncertainty. Organizational complexity was also low. The constraints, there was not really many constraints, mostly regulations that they have to adhere to. And there was not, the purpose of this transfer was not to change either radically or a little bit the way the organization works. The organization still, or this chain still needs to send an order, get the order sent from the warehouse next day. So there was no change. So this is how this project looks like using this web diagram. On the other hand, you have another project, the construction project B4. The impact on business was not very significant because this was the phase 4 of a huge project. So it was moderate impact on the business. And there was no any change. There was no transformation. You are building apartments. Uncertainty was low as well. But the constraints level were very, very high. There was a lot of constraints that you have to adhere to. And the project, of course, this is a construction project, a lot of suppliers, a lot of contractors, they were involved. Now, if you look at these two projects using this web diagram, can we manage them the same way? Or should we manage them the same way? Or should we adapt our approach, management approach, to the unique characteristics of this project? And our answer, we have to adapt. If you want to succeed, you cannot generalize. There are some rules applies to all projects, but there are some rules apply to each project. And this is something we will be discussing in details in chapters 6 and 7 when we come to the concept of success factors. Success factors means the ground rules that you have to adhere to. And if you adhere to these ground rules, the chances of success will become higher. There are many types of these success factors. There are some project specific, context specific, and they depend on the nature of your project. But there are also some soft factors that has to do with the environment that you conduct your project. This soft factor has really nothing to do with the project characteristics. They apply to all types of projects, like building trust, creating commitment. It doesn't really matter how small or how big or how complicated is your project. These are factors that are needed to enable you to attain other factors. We will come back to these factors when we study success in details in chapter 7. And thank you.